Song Talk Radio.
Welcome to Song Talk Radio, the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting. We share tips, tools, and techniques, and together we all become better at writing songs. I'm your host, Neil Modi, and filling in for Phil Emery tonight is nobody. I'm going solo with our guest, indie folk singer-songwriter Meris Gantt. How are you, Meris?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Glad you could come on the show with us. To our listeners, please send your comments and questions to @Songtalk Radio on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or feedback at songtalk.ca for the email, and we'll share your thoughts on the show. And please visit songtalk.ca to see the show post for this episode and to find links to resources we mention and to download lyric and chord sheets to follow along with the songs that we feature. And before we get to our guest tonight, just want to alert our listeners once again, our songwriting challenge for 2023 has dropped to write a song in a mode that you're not familiar with, or an unusual mode, whatever that means to you. And as before, Phil and I are going to do our answers to this challenge, and we invite our listeners, of course, to submit your songs, send your songs to feedback at songtalk.ca with a lyric sheet, an MP3, and just a little paragraph about your songwriting process behind it. And of course, on the website, songtalk.ca, we also have a resource page. If you look on the sidebar, Songwriting Challenge 2023, we got some videos, some infographics, some articles. The first episode we did with composer Jeff Allen Greenway, we went through a couple of modes and explained some stuff, because for this one, a little bit deeper music theory stuff. I know modes are kind of scary for a lot of people, so we're inviting you to sort of think outside your creative boxes and experiment with something. You may not end up with the greatest song in the world, but at the very least, you'll learn something, and maybe it's a launching ground for a version 2 of the song, which we all know works quite well. How about you, Meris? Have you ever engaged in songwriting challenges?
Songwriting, I thought you were going to ask me about modes, and I was Googling what that was. Songwriting challenge. I have a couple. I've been in the Merlefest songwriting. It's a North Carolina songwriting contest a couple of times, and they're not doing that one anymore. But I think
is it a contest or a challenge?
Oh, a challenge where somebody gives you a prompt?
Yeah, like you're given a prompt, like we're giving our listeners this prompt.
I have done very little of that. I've done a couple of songwriting workshops and gotten prompts, and actually came up with some. I think I'd actually do well with the prompt. I should do it more.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing that I've found, I'm actually engaging in one with another group. There's a fellow from Minnesota, Chad Shank, who runs an at-home songwriting meetup group and YouTube channel. Really, really great content creator. He's recently started teaching lyrics at Berklee School of Music online. So he's a really great instructor and everything. And in the last 2 times this year so far, he's dropped a songwriting challenge where he lists 7 different conditions that your song must adhere to. Some of them are music theory, some of them are lyric based, some of them are melody, he focuses a lot on rhymes. You can't, the first one we did, you couldn't have any perfect rhymes in your song.
No.
It's like really interesting, and a lot of people in the group, everyone was totally up to it, and everyone came up with some really, really good quality songs. It's quite an amazing thing. But the thing for me is that, like, it really helps to focus you on one thing, or on, and in his case, 7 things. But it really helps to eliminate a lot of decision making, because it's like my choices are limited, so I have to do it this way. So this is the only way it's going to come out. Instead, when you're faced with a totally blank page and you can write anything, you tend to wander. You tend to not find a focus for it. But I find with a challenge, you really zone in on something. That's the way I find it. It's really helpful. And plus, having a deadline.
I mean, a deadline is huge.
Yeah.
One of the workshops I did, he's like, I don't help you write a song. I make you write a song.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, the workshop type things are the same way, because by the end of it, you've written at least a lyric or something, or a chorus, or whatever it may be, right? Yeah, it's always an amazing process. And it is the sort of things that I think the pro songwriters do. I mean, most of us are kind of I've recently adopted the label of passionate amateur. I'm like, I'm an amateur. I'm not making any money off of this, but I can adopt the things that the pros do and try to adopt the same kind of habits and the same kind of approaches and techniques and stuff that they do, and see if it works for me. Always a great thing. Okie dokie. All right, so on to the main event. Tonight, we're going to be talking to Meris about her song Fine, and here's a little taste.
You're not the only one to feel an ache and then you run. When the damage is done, you lie awake and hide from the rising sun. You've been through hell, but you're quiet about it. Walking into your hometown like it had been a while since you thought about it. Everything is gonna turn out fine. Everything is gonna turn out fine.
Meris Gantt is an indie folk singer and songwriter based out of North Carolina mountains. Meris's songwriting is honest and to the point, exploring life's journeys with longing, regret, and the silver linings that lie in between. Her songs tell tales of love, loss, and redemption that speaks to the universal truths that bind us all together. With Forced Revival, Gantt continues to guide her fans down the winding roads of their own lives, sparking a flame of hope, inspiration, and wonder. Her current bands include Handlebar Betty and Meris Gantt and Devin Lacey. Great to have you on the show, Meris.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Awesome stuff. And so let's start with your songwriting process. I mean, just in listening to that snippet for our listeners, and of course I've listened to your song already. Very much steeped in a folk tradition. And with a lot of folk writing, lyrics clearly are very important to you. Mm-hmm. Is that how you usually start songs, is with lyrics, or is there something else that sparks it?
It is. I don't have a very specific process, but I will say that a lot of my songs are sort of written like stream of consciousness. And a lot of them will start as something like coming out of a dream, like an actual dream. Like I keep a notebook by my bed. And I mean, I wake up a lot of times and will just be like scribbling. And it's nonsense. I mean, most of the time it's nonsense. But then there will be like some kind of, whether it's like a hook or something that I see in there. I think I read a lot of one-line choruses, something I didn't realize that I did. Really sort of simplistic choruses that just have one main point. And that's how it was with this. So it's interesting having it be sort of stream of consciousness and whenever the universe hits you over the head with something, because then I have to, at a certain point, I don't normally write the whole song that way, right? Usually you don't get a whole song out of that. You get like a third, maybe 2/3 if you're lucky. And then at some point you have to go, what is this about? Like what are we saying? Where's this coming from? And that for me is the hard part, is whether it's like, oh, this needs a bridge, or it needs some sort of completion, or it can't just be gibberish, even though, I mean, I guess it could. I mean, I think some songwriters, it can be just complete stream of consciousness. But in order to bring it around in a thoughtful way, there has to be some degree of introspection. And so I guess that's where maybe like the work comes in. As far as like the process, like if I have to actually finish a song, it's like, well, what is this about? And I find, and I feel like I say this a lot, but sometimes I don't know what I'm writing about till sometimes it's just a couple weeks later. Sometimes it's years and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what that's about. Like I
Oh.
wrote one recently. Um, and I mean, I'm probably just making this up in my head because it like felt really exciting at the time. But this was like last week and I was playing it for some of my band members in that very first like, are they gonna like it? It's probably terrible. Like maybe don't play it, but it's just like at the end of practice and you're like kind of noodling and somebody's like, what are you working on? And it's like, it's nothing. I don't want to play it,
Mm.
But then you do and they actually like it. So
Mhm.
that was this situation. And so we played it a little bit and I was like, oh, I think it's the prequel to the song that I wrote
Mm.
like 12 years ago. I mean, I don't know if it is, but it could be.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to link them together like they are. So that things like that to me, whether it's just like something my brain likes to think or whether it's just something really like witchy in the universe, is that to me that's like the magic of bringing forward things that aren't necessarily conscious into being and then not even seeing the point until later is, I mean,
Mhm.
it's therapy for sure.
Yeah, well,
But
certainly it can be. We've heard this before from other songwriters about they call it morning pages, where it's like it's like you're just on the verge of waking up and you grab your notebook and you just there's a book called The Artist's Way that a lot of people have referred to, that talks about this, I guess, pretty extensively. I've never read it myself. Full
I thought
disclosure.
about reading it.
Yeah. And yeah, it's really interesting, especially what you say about letting stuff simmer and digest. I actually heard a phrase. um uh well, actually say what it was. The phrase was, I can see the scar on your heart, right? And I'm like, that's a really, and my only thought at the time was like, wow, what a great lyric for a song. I don't know what the content is, whatever, but I actually posted on Facebook because I heard this phrase and I'm like, I thought, oh, this is a great lyric for a song. And everyone was like, yeah, write it, write it, write it. I'm like, I don't know what the idea is. What does that apply to? What is the thing? And it was like weeks and weeks later that I was thinking about a friend of mine who was going through a real rough time, and it's something that I could have said to him because he kind of wears his emotions on his face, right? And it's like, I could see the scar on your heart. It's like, okay, well, I haven't written it yet, but at least I've got the second step. There was something, like you say, the universe kind of hands you something, and it's like, okay, well, but the trick is noticing it and making note of it, writing it
Yes.
down, bringing, like you say, bringing it to your to a higher degree of consciousness. If you're talking about morning pages, then it's a little bit more effort to get to your consciousness. But once you've got it there, then you kind of bookmarked it,
Hmm.
right? And then you can come back to it, years later. I've done that many times. Not well, many times, but I've done that from time to time. It's like, I've just revived a lyric from years ago that didn't
Uh-huh.
quite work for that song. Oh, I can resurrect it and use it for this. And
So many of those. I wrote down one yesterday when I was doing scribblings, and I wrote down, I think it's there's freedom in nothing and wasting nobody's time. And I wrote that about
mm,
like this homeless guy I was friends with like in California when I lived there for a summer after college. And I'm trying to think if that song that it's made it into one song, I guess, but I don't know. That statement has always stuck with me. And this was 20 years ago, but I don't know.
mm.
There's something about some of these lines. And I have a couple bridges too that like don't have homes. And anytime I write a new song, I'm like, oh, does it go there? No, that's a
Well,
stretch.
let's talk about something a little bit more logistical. How do you organize all these things? Do you have like a spreadsheet of Google Docs or something, or like how do you organize it all and save it all and keep it all and then be able to review it and
Good question.
and back it up in case it gets destroyed?
I like it to get destroyed every so often.
Oh.
I don't have anything online. I mean, I'm on my computer constantly with other things, but with writing, I've just got like a notebook
Mm,
and every few years probably. I mean, with like the morning pages stuff, that's more like I want to like burn that every week or something. But if I
oh,
have good lines that stick out, I'll put them in a different notebook.
okay.
But I will periodically every few years go through a song notebook and then get rip the good pages out and put them in a new one, and then like not burn it, but because this one I think has leather on it, but just like clear the air. Like sometimes I want the old stuff gone forever because it'll come back if it's important enough.
Yeah, or if you note it and transfer it to a different
Mm-hmm.
a different thing, a different bucket, and then then you can light fire to the first bucket for sure. Yeah, that's a really great way of doing it, because I know for it's kind of the same thing with me when it comes to music. Although this has become better over the years, but you used to be that I have a file folder full of like interesting little musical ideas. I'd record something on my keyboard. Okay, that's a little riff, that's a little ditty, great. Give it a name, save it. Okay, and then there's just like this endless catalog of stuff, and you just got all this stuff that doesn't really amount to anything. And at a certain point, I'm always like, I'm fully digital. I don't hardly use a pen and paper anymore at all, and so it's all there. I never delete anything, so it's kind of the back catalog is there, but it's a question. Like, I really like your idea about like take the massive stuff, whittle it down, take out the good stuff. Even if you don't know what it means right away, you know that it's got some legs on it, and then you can move it forward. That's really cool. So how about the music side? So do you develop a full lyric first before you grab your guitar and try and come up with a melody and stuff?
That, I feel like it's a little bit different every time. And I was going to tack on to organization. I do have just like the normal audio thing on my phone that once I do get to the part where I'm putting the melody and the lyrics together, I do usually just like record that process so that I can go back and be like, oh yeah, I like how I sang that one line that time, and I might never have gotten that back. So I do have some pretty long recordings of just like me humming along some stuff and then being like, no, it's funny to listen back to. But as far as your question, I don't know. Sometimes I get an idea for the melody right away. And sometimes, like this morning, because I had written some things last night and I had a few minutes, I just picked up the guitar and started messing around with some chords. Didn't really get anywhere. I'll probably come back. I'm like, is it going to be an E? Maybe. I haven't written a song in E in a while. I don't know. Is it too bluesy? Is it not bluesy enough? That kind of thing. I do often find that I'm limited because I play guitar, but I'm not an instrumentalist. So sometimes I'll limit myself if I pick up a guitar too early before I've developed the idea of a melody, because if I'm just like GCDing it, but like there's something more intricate and interesting in my head, I'd like to get that figured out and then just figure out how to play along with it. And then if my chords aren't jiving with what I'm doing, I know a lot of people that are really good with instruments that can help me sort of flesh it out and make it more unique. There's a really interesting in Fine, the bridge has a really interesting lead guitar walk down, walk up thing. And that was just, me and Devin sitting around, before the song was completed, just kind of messing around. And he did that on accident. And I was like, what was that? So I kind of lean on the musicians around me in my bands to make my songs like cooler, I think.
Oh, I can totally appreciate that.
They do, and they hold me back when I want to do really like Disney kinds of things.
Of course.
They're like, whoa. I'm like, oh, but I want to hold on that note forever. They're like,
yeah. Keep it simple, right?
take it down a notch.
Yeah, actually. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about Fine then. So was this song, to tell us the story behind the song? What how did it come
Man, well
about?
this one's hard, and it was a little hard so we picked this for the single for this album. So like the most press has been about this song, and it's a very vulnerable song. It's one that I didn't know what I was writing about. So it was in the pandemic, and we were all in that, what are we doing with our lives? So I think it came out of that place. But I'll say this because we're talking about the song, so we got to talk about it. My father passed away 9 years ago, suddenly.
Oh.
And up until that point, I had wanted to process that through songwriting because that I think is how I process things, but I like never was able to. And this song, I was on a hike, which sounds corny, but sometimes I'll do that to like clear my head. And I was just like walking and I needed a bridge, right? I was up to the point where I was like, need something, it needs something. And I had just been in our hometown, which is in Southport, North Carolina. I had just been there helping out my sister with a wedding. And it was the first time I'd been there since my mom had sold our childhood home. And my father passed and all the things. And it just, that felt really emotional. And I also had during the pandemic given up alcohol.
Oh.
Like for the most part, I was like on that journey. And so feeling isolated in that world and you don't have a home. And I think that that's sort of where this song came out of. But I didn't know that until I was on this hike and I just started crying. And I realized that it was like a conversation with my father. Like I wasn't quite sure what we were. Yeah, we can pause.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure what we were saying to each other, but like it was something about it being fine and it being okay. And I think also honoring, when you're a child, your parents are your parents, and then you grow as an adult and you realize that they didn't have it all figured out and were also just children raising you, and you have that shared understanding of like, I don't know, just like everybody's doing their best and life's hard and.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was going to say, because I mean, to hear you tell the story of the song, it's in a lot of ways it's a lot heavier than the song lets on, right? It's like with the lyric, you kind of took a step back, and because I mean we've talked about this on the show many times. If you're super specific about your personal story, it gets a little self-indulgent, perhaps. In a song, so you want to kind of step back and write the lyrics in such a way that it's evocative and profound maybe and deep, but at the same time it's not specific enough that no one else cannot read their own story into it, right? You want your audience to be able to read themselves into it, because I had an interpretation of this song that has nothing to do with your backstory.
Can I hear what it is
behind it? What's that?
I want to hear what it is, but I also just want to echo what you said, because I think for me, since the things I'm writing are just sort of in, I'm pulling whatever strands from whichever directions, but they are personal to me. I'm not necessarily writing about a story song about somebody else. I did feel like with Fine, it felt really universal. And when I cry a lot when I'm singing it. I mean, not sobbing, but it gets to me. But not necessarily. I'm not always thinking about my dad. I might be thinking about my friend that's going through something, or somebody else in my family. Like that song brings up different imagery for me, even as the songwriter, because I do feel like it applies not just to me. Like I think it's broad enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I'm curious actually let's listen to the song first, and then I'll tell you my interpretation.
Okay, I can't wait.
It's not obscure.
No, but I think that's why I love this song so much. I mean, I've written a pretty good number of songs, and this is my favorite, and I think that is why, because it doesn't just apply to one thing, even though it came out of one place. And that is the beauty of songwriting, because I don't know, when I'm listening to songs, I am always putting myself in them. That's what we all do, right?
Even if it's about somebody else or something else, you're still putting yourself into it. You're giving your point of view on somebody else, your point of view on how you feel about this incident. Even if it's a politically charged protest song, it's still your opinion on it, still your take on things, right? So I'm always big on like personal story, not personal story. It's still you as a songwriter. But so we're going to be treated to a live performance, right, Meris? of
we
Fine.
are one that I did not prepare for, but I'm not going to disclaimer it.
Yeah,
Just gonna play
It's
it.
gonna be great. And
Won't
then
have all of the beautiful guitar licks from Glenn Dewell and Devin Lacey, but
yes.
we'll just do it.
And then we'll talk about it some more. Okay, great. Take it away.
All right.
You're not the only one to feel an ache and then you run. When the damage is done, you lie awake and hide from the rising sun. You've been through hell, but you're quiet about it. Walking into your hometown like it had been a while since you thought about it. Everything is gonna turn out fine. Honey, you don't look so well. You've been walking that straight line. In the garden when you fell, you found nothing left to prove. You saw the light. Everything is gonna turn out fine. Everything is gonna turn out fine. Do you feel like a stranger in your own skin? Do you feel like you're cut a little different from them? When you drive past the house where we used to live, can't stand in a world where everything's changed. So tired of trying to be okay. It's alright, we all let go someday. Everything is gonna turn out fine. Everything is gonna turn out fine.
Bravo. Very nice.
Thank you. It
was
felt
beautiful.
risky. We did it.
Yeah. Awesome. Way to go. Yeah. So when I first heard this song and looked at the lyrics and stuff, I mean, like you were saying, it's to me, it's a great message about everything's gonna turn out fine. That's something I think that a lot of people need to hear every once in a while, myself included.
All the time.
You know, and it's a very, very simple, easy way to say it. And you know, for the rest of the song, I felt like it's really, you know, that kind of thing about going through rough times and having a bit of down moments. The bridge is what kind of took me for a bit of a twist, because now we're introducing we. Up until now, it's been advice to a friend, right? But as soon as you start putting we into it, that puts the twist on it, and that's what leaves me curious, more curious about if my interpretation is quote unquote right. You know what I mean? But that to me adds some interest to the song as well, because it's like, oh, so what is this about? Or are we taking a turn here? Which is exactly what a bridge, quote unquote, should
It's
do.
supposed to do, right?
A classic Nashville 101, your bridge goes to a slightly different place, and you change the melody in the bridge just enough, and certainly, yeah, the element of introducing we into the bridge really elevates it. I really love there's a very gentle aspect to this song. It's very conversational. The melodies are soft. There's no like really high, low money notes. There's no big interval jumps, anything like that. And aside from the first verse, you've got run and sun. You've got a perfect rhyme. After that, you never perfect line. You got line and light. You've got skin and live. Right. There's a bunch of these rhymes that aren't perfect rhymes after the very first one. So the first verse feels more ordered somehow, and then it gets kind of softer as well. And the contrast in the chorus is really nice. I mean, like you say, the chords are simple, musically, harmonically is quite simple, but the way that everything is going to turn out fine just climbs up. It is a very different kind of rhythm and melody than your verse, so it really stands out. And as well, and like you say, one line choruses. That's something I'm struggling with right now. That a song that I'm for a songwriting challenge, I want like a classic one line chorus, but my idea is a little too not out there, but it's too complex for a one line chorus. At least my idea for a title. But it's harder to do than you think. I mean, we tend to want to throw in lots of content, but if you can pare it down to 5 words with 6 words.
You're gonna laugh when I say this, but I actually do it because it's easier for the people around me to learn.
Yeah.
Words.
Oh, absolutely. I can totally appreciate
I'm like, here's a new song. You have to learn 6 words. Mm-hmm. We're gonna do it like 5 times. Yeah. So that it's sometimes it's a little intentional. It's like, well, it'll just be simple if they just have to learn one thing.
Yeah, but does that satisfies your audience and it gets them to participate? Does it satisfy you?
No, I don't mean audience. I mean people in the band.
Oh, people in the band. Okay. The audience is singing along. Okay, for your band members who are intensely focused on their instrumental parts as well, right? So you want.
Yeah, I'm like, it's just simple for everybody. I didn't know that I did that. I think maybe I'm just saying that to be funny, but I have noticed I don't know, a lot of my songs have just very simple one-line choruses. I don't know if that's why, but I like saying it.
Okay, fair enough. So it is because my follow-up question to that would be, how is it satisfying creatively for you to say, I'm going to pare down my chorus to the simplest that I can, at the expense of leaving out meaning or depth or any of those other things that you might care about?
I really respect songwriters that can say a lot with very few words. Mm-hmm. And so I do think that I strive for that. Gillian Welch, I think, is probably maybe my favorite. Mm-hmm. And that's really a lot of what I grew up listening to. And I'm just amazed every time I hear their songs. It's just so simple. You're like, oh, I don't know. That's always sort of been a goal for me, is to really strip down a song and take out as many words as I can and still get a point across. It's almost like a haiku or something,
Yeah.
But it's funny because I love your what you said about my song with the rhyming and the knot and all the things. And for both of them, with the rhymes, I was like, oh, I didn't like all of that is unintentional completely. Like, I don't know that I'm doing any of that. I also didn't realize that I went to we in the bridge until you said that. So
Really?
that was also and like all unintentional. But that was the revelation that came to me with the bridge when it did come to me. I was like, not that it was a we, but it just felt right, and I could tell that I don't know, it was a conversation with I don't know if it was a conversation with my father, but it was honoring that feeling in some way.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that I changed it to a we till you told me.
Right, right. And it's the sort of thing where, okay, we can appreciate that where it came from, but then on the next pass of the song, do you notice that it's we? And can you just temporarily flip it to you, flip the we's to use, and does the song still work? Does the
Oh,
song
you
still
asking
communicate what
me?
you wanted to communicate?
Like if I put the we's in the first and second verse, you mean?
No, no, no. If you change the bridge to um when you drive past the house where you used to live.
Oh yeah, I don't think it's as powerful at all. Because you're like,
Well,
who's we? That's where your brain goes. It's like, who is we?
that's what I mean. If you were to flip the
Right.
we in the bridge to you, do you feel like a
Hmm.
stranger in your own skin? Do you feel like you're cut from a different than when you drive past the house where you used to live?
Oh, that's not as good.
That's not as good. Why not?
Uh, it feels more basic.
Hmm.
We is like you immediately go, oh, who's we? What are we
Yeah,
talking about? It
yeah,
brings you
you
into
do.
it somehow because you're like, now I have questions.
Yeah, and that's what it did for me, because then I began to question the rest of my interpretation, and where's the we in the rest of the song? Is it implied? Is it is it hidden there
Well,
somewhere?
but I will say my family didn't know that this was about my dad. I didn't
Yeah,
share that with them, and
right.
I don't think they knew until they read it in a press release and
Yeah,
were like,
there you go.
they were like, oh, like no. So even the people closest to me, I don't know that the bands I play with actually know that
Hmm.
now, even. You know what I mean? Like I think even if you know me, you don't necessarily know what this song is about at all. It's like even the people closest to me would have a totally different interpretation, which is cool,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
They're not like, oh, this is about that thing she did, you know.
Is that typical of your songs? You kind of step back from the situation
Gosh,
and open to interpretation a little bit,
I I
even though
hope it
even though
did.
it is beautiful and it is specific, but like you say, it's not specific to any particular story.
I think I do try to hide reality in songs a little bit. So like I hope people don't know what they're about sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like sometimes I'll play something um like the newest song I played recently, I was sort of like, I hope nobody's thinking too hard about this, right? Like everybody just thinks about themselves. Because I'm like, I don't really want them to know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
writing about. I feel that way about a lot of my songs,
Well, and that's just
but I
it.
do, but I don't.
I read the line, everything is going to turn out fine, and I apply it to my own life.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what you want. You want the listener to turn it inwards, right? Because you're right. We do tend to everyone's selfish to a large degree. They think about themselves more than anyone else. And I'm thinking about how that line applies to me.
But I mean, that's how it is. I mean, literally, I played that song the other night and it felt really personal because it was like about something that I'd gone through recently. And I was sort of like, I don't know if I can play this because I don't want them to be like, oh, I see what you're writing about. But none of them did. They were like, is this a murder ballad? I was like, yeah,
It is now.
that's what it is now. It certainly is now. So it's like, I do want to get stuff out there, but it's not like you don't leave breadcrumbs kind of too. You know, because it is for me. It's probably not like that for every songwriter. I think you know, everybody comes from a different place, but for me, it's personal, not personal.
Mhm.
Like it's sparked from me, but that doesn't mean, you know, I don't know. I'm saying the same thing over again, but
Yeah, no. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we had a songwriter on our show years back who wrote a song about his mom who recently had passed away. And until he said that, I had no idea. There was all sorts of imagery and other things in there and associations with it. It was complete. It was beautiful, but I didn't read that story into it at all. Now that I know that's what it's about, that song has, when I listen to that song on his CD, it's like it has so much more depth and meaning for me when I listen to it. So to me, there's those layers, right? And that's the interesting thing about artists and fan engagement these days. Like you say, your family read it in a press release, right? That's for your fans as well. That's for people who come to your show and, well, I really like this artist. I'm going to read a little bit more about them. I'm going to discover a little bit more about them. And they hear this podcast, or they read it in a press release, and then hopefully they appreciate this song on a different level now, on a deeper level.
Yeah, and it's not because I don't want to share, like I'm really close with my family, but sometimes I don't want people to know that deeper layer. And I think with this project, because I have tried to really sort of put myself out there both through the music and through launching it. So I've never gone quite so in depth with like what songs mean and where they come from. And it's extremely uncomfortable, and nothing I ever wanted to do before at all, because it's very uncomfortable. But I think I understand myself more for doing it. So it's just one of those, like, do the hard thing. I think there's, just its own kind of payoff. But yeah, no, I don't want to walk around talking about what my songs are about to people. That's crazy.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it's easier for you to, like I say, it's therapeutic. It's a way to get it out. Otherwise, you're never going to get those emotions out.
Well, and I will say too, as I get older, I try, when I'm writing songs and getting the emotions out. I used to have so much judgment around, like, I wouldn't even write a song if I didn't feel like it was good, like whatever good is, or if it was too self-indulgent, like I wouldn't even get it out. And now I try to just take that away a little and just like write a bad song. Like that should be a prompt. And I'm sure it is. Like write a horrible song just to get over yourself, basically. So I think that's just anybody in life. The older you get, the more you try to just get that perfectionist part of yourself out of the way. Or maybe that's just
absolutely.
me. But
that other songwriting challenge I was talking about, the deadline was literally last night. I just finished the damn thing. I wasn't perfectly happy with it, but I'm just like, this is sketch one here.
No, I mean, writing just to write, and that's that's the thing I guess therapies help with. I mean, my therapist, I'll be like, oh, I wrote a song about it and I think it's good, and she'll say, like, well, why does it matter if it's good? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. So that's a newer realization that I'm trying to lean into, that is difficult and uncomfortable but wonderful all at the same time, like just like life.
Absolutely. And and I think it matters if it's good, but
you're too much like me.
Yeah. Well, we're always our own self critics before anyone else.
Well, I'm trying to take that off the table, but it's trying to just let whatever comes out come out. But of course, you're not gonna put the ones that aren't fit for public consumption out there. That's not necessary. But like, I can still write it and play it and then be like, okay, great.
Yeah. And then that's why it's important to know if it's good enough, because it's up to you whether it's good enough to put out there.
Well, I take it to other people. Sometimes I'll just take it to band practice. And like I said, it's horrifying always to play a new song. But Glenn Duell, who's the producer on this album, he is very to the point and wonderful. And he just, I don't know, he gets it. He knows whether it's good or not. He knows if you can change it or if you just need to start over. So a song that I wrote over the holidays, I took to him, and it was like cold outside and his family had COVID, and we sat out freezing in his yard in lawn chairs. And I was just like, Glenn, I have to know if this is worth pursuing. And for some reason, it came from such an emotional place that like I had to know whether it was like good or not. And I don't know why, I just needed to know. So I made him listen to me outside of his house in 30-degree weather. And he said it was worth pursuing, even though maybe the first part didn't fit with some of the other, and needed to work on the rhythm a little, but but he did. But Glenn is a person that will not lie to you. He will not sugarcoat it. He will just say what he thinks about it, and there's nothing else about it. And my best friend is also like that. Like, don't ask. My husband's like that too. Don't ask the opinion if you don't want the answer, because it's like it's not coming in.
No, it's great to have people like that in your life.
I need people like that around me.
Yeah, absolutely. Good, honest feedback is always a great thing. Okay, I'm here in the band. That is about all the time we have on Song Talk Radio tonight. Special thanks to Meris Gantt. Where can our listeners hear more of your music, Meris?
All right. Gosh, was I prepped for this? merisgantt.com is my website. You can also check us out at handlebarbetty.com. And on Instagram, we are at Meris Gantt Music and then also Handlebar Betty Band. And both are also on Spotify. Handlebar Betty.
And spell Meris Gantt for our listeners, please.
Oh, thank you. I know, right? I made cards with a QR code recently so I could just hand it to people. I'm like, just don't worry about the spelling. Okay, Meris. Last name, Gantt, Gantt. I'm like the only Meris, though, so like just start typing it.
You'll find it. And of course, if you visit songtalk.ca and check out the show post for this, we will have links to all that stuff. So you can always check it out there. And we want to hear from you, our listeners. So please send your comments, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Song Talk Radio, or send us an email, feedback@songtalk.ca. Also, be sure to check out our YouTube channel for live performance videos. There'll be one from tonight and full episodes. And subscribe today to the Song Talk Radio podcast on your favorite podcast provider. And you can find links to all the products, books, and web services we mentioned on the show on our resources page on the website. And please join us at our next monthly Song Talk meetup, whether you're in Toronto for our in-person meetups or anywhere in the world for our online meetups. That includes the Carolinas. If you're free to join on meetup.com and free to attend the meetup, bring a song and a lyric sheet and get constructive feedback from other songwriters. Stop by songtalk.ca for the link. You can follow me at neilmodi.com. And Meris, what's your favorite social media platform?
Instagram.
Instagram? Perfect. We will link to that from our page. Thanks for listening, everybody. Be sure to stop by the website, songtalk.ca, to browse past shows and find out how you can be a guest. Thanks for tuning in, and keep on writing. That was fantastic.
It was so fun. I've never done this before, like
Cool.
do an interview or talk about songs. So I was just trying to not overthink it and just respond to what you said. So thank you. Thank you so much. It's delightful.
You're very welcome. Yeah, you're a wonderful guest, actually. We always like it when the guest can just take it away and just talk.
Well,
it's less work for us.
That. Yeah, that's thank you.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a lot of good insights, quite frankly. Like a lot of stuff. I mean, for me personally, I mean, I've spent the last two songs writing about like deep personal pain stuff, and it's like, okay, it's enough. I want to write something fun or something.
I know. I need to write a fun one too. The last one I wrote was supposed to be fun, and it's like the most dreamy. It's the one that they were like, "Is this a murder ballad?" It's supposed to be fun.
Murder ballads can be fun.
Oh yeah, we actually do. There's a thing we do here in Boone called Appalachian Murder Ballads.
Oh really?
And it's like a show that this girl Kat produces at our band. It's a bunch of like local musicians that get together and do this like Halloween. It's always like the week of Halloween, and we do murder ballad night. It's starting to catch on. It was
That's amazing.
But it's still sort of it's cool. But yeah,
that sounds like so much fun. Oh my god!
Right. Well, there's a lot of weird murders here because it's like the hills. Yeah, weird place. But
cool. Yeah, but if you want more songwriting talk, you should come to our meetup. It's online.
I'll check it out.
Half of them, we over the pandemic, obviously, we went fully online. We used to have it in a club down in downtown Toronto, and now we've gone back to. Now we're doing a hybrid thing because same like with this podcast, we used to run it on the radio station in Toronto, in downtown Toronto. So you had to be a songwriter who was in Toronto,
wow,
and available on Tuesday nights to be in come to Ryerson University downtown, and then that was it. So we weren't open to. We got messages from like the States, from England, from Australia, going to be on your podcast, and we're like, sorry, you have to be in Toronto. But now that we're all resume, we're getting guests from all over the place. We're getting people in our meetup from all over the place, and it's kind of amazing that way.
Wow, I mean the pandemic and the whole Zoom world it's changed my industry as well with the wedding planning. I mean, I don't have in-person meetings hardly at all anymore. You used to meet people in person, and now we're just obviously Zooming all the time.
Yeah. Well, it
Kinda
reduces your
great.
commute time, doesn't it?
Sure does.
just a click away. Okay, awesome. Well, okay, that's great. I'm really excited to check out the rest of your stuff on Spotify
Thank
and
you.
whatever.
It comes out tomorrow. I'm I'm just excited about it. Like to see it come from a spark to be a project that is like collaborative and something that I'm really happy with is just almost weird.
That's cool.
You know.
That's amazing. Okay, Meris, thanks a lot for coming. And
Thanks, Niels. Nice to meet you.
yeah, it's great to meet you too. And I'll give you a heads up when the podcast is published. It'll be about a week or so.
That'd be great.
Ish,
I'll
and you
pump
can
it out on all the places.
Yeah, you can put it on all the places, share it with your peeps, and that'll be great.
Awesome.
All right,
All
take
right.
care, and yeah,
Thank
say hi to the
you.
Carolinas for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Enjoy Toronto.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye bye. Have a great night.
You too.
Bye bye.